Hello there, Star Wars fans. It's time to check out some Clone Wars reviews. In particular, I'm going to read off some 1-star reviews of the Clone Wars Season 7 because I absolutely love the Clone Wars Season 7 and I'm honestly curious about what people could hate so much when it comes to this season. Yes, a lot of folks didn't like the Martez sisters, but the Siege of Mandalore was absolutely amazing. And many suggest it's some of the best Star Wars we've gotten recently. But before we get to the reviews, I just want to say these come from RottenTomatoes.com, where the Clone Wars Season 7, specifically Season 7, has a reading of 100% from critics and a 93% audience score, which is very comparable to The Mandalorian, which has a audience score of 93% and a critic rating of 93% as well. But let's get right into the comments here. And first up, we have a 1-star comment by Michael B, and he states, "Doesn't even come close to Season 6. The Bad Batch, one hacker, stupid big guy, Japanese sniper, and a jungle hero. Wow, so creative. Doesn't fit in the Star Wars The Clone Wars universe and is a total fail." End quote. Well, Michael, if the rumors are true and the Bad Batch are getting their own Star Wars animation show, I have a feeling you're going to be giving that a 1-star as well. But jokes aside, what Michael says is honestly a valid opinion. The Bad Batch certainly aren't original, but if we look at the Clone Wars as a whole, Dave Filoni and George Lucas certainly borrowed from other stories. And personally, I really enjoyed how the Bad Batch were all very much individuals, which contrasted how the other clones were also similar. And I certainly disagree with Michael when he says that they don't fit into the Clone Wars. But let's move on to the next comment here, who comes from an anonymous source. They rate the Clone Wars Season 7 as 1.5 stars, and they state in the review, "Honestly, this was a terrible season overall. Bad Batch episodes felt like watching the Avengers, no sense of tactics or actual combat, just a few OP unkillable guys against an army. Cool if you're like 5. And I just find this first part of the comment absolutely hilarious. I mean, isn't every action movie ever made just a bunch of OP unkillable guys or gals? Not to mention he compares them to the Avengers like that's a bad thing. And again, this is just so much better because the rumor is the Bad Batch is coming next as an animation series. Well, let's read some more of this comment. It goes on to say, "Episodes 7 to 8, silly kids show at best with no logic or stakes that serve no purpose other than Ahsoka coming to a conclusion about the Jedi, which she had already made pretty much." And I'd have to disagree. Ahsoka did learn quite a bit in this story arc. It is true that she herself really started to doubt the Jedi, and because of that walked away from the Order, but until these episodes she didn't have the perspective of the common people. And love or hate the Martez sisters, I think that's one thing that we can take away from those 4 episodes. But let's move on to the rest of the comment. Anonymous states, "The final 4 episodes had some emotion, but mostly due to the connections to Revenge of the Sith. But it soon became an insult to clone troopers and Jedi when Ahsoka and Rex take down an entire clone battalion on their own. This is an outrageous waste of time. Star Wars is really throwing logic out the window the more and more as time goes by. I am sad now. I'll go watch Revenge of the Sith to remember what Star Wars is at its best. From my point of view, the Clone Wars Season 7 is evil." So I think Anonymous actually had some decent points in there until he gets to the end and he just says Season 7 is evil. And yeah, it took me a minute to get it, but that is an allusion to Revenge of the Sith when Anakin says, "From my point of view, the Jedi are evil." But to tell you the truth, I never really liked that bit of dialogue anyway. But hey, I think the criticism overall of Ahsoka and Rex being able to escape, I think that is one of the weaker parts of the Siege of Mandalore story arc. And I wish in particular that Ahsoka Tano had been a little more isolated, or at least not completely surrounded by clone troopers during Order 66. Though I think overall that scene where she escapes Order 66 is pretty cool, where she deflects all the laser bolts up into the ceiling and that allows her to escape. But that said, I'm just super happy that Anonymous didn't say that he was gonna go watch A New Hope, where a farm boy from Tatooine hops in an X-Wing for the first time and blows up the Death Star. I mean, many great movies have their heroes doing fantastic and unrealistic things. It's part of what makes them so cool. But let's move on to Stephen D, who also gives a rating of 1.5 stars for Season 7 of the Clone Wars. And part of his comment mentions, "You left off with Season 6 with Yoda discovering the importance of Anakin and Sidious, and Maul back in Sidious's clutches. However, with some Disney magic, Maul's free again. What and how, you may ask? You assume I know, right? Because I've finished the show? Nope." And Stephen even goes as far to say that the final season of the Clone Wars is actually Season 6. So I gotta say I'm a little surprised he gave it 1.5 out of 5 and not just 1. But hey, that said, the part about Maul, I think that's absolutely valid. Unless you're a Star Wars canon junkie and you know about the Son of Dathomir comic book series, then it truly makes absolutely no sense that Darth Maul is on the loose again. But then again, Stephen, it didn't really make sense that Darth Maul was alive after what happened in The Phantom Menace. So again, in Star Wars, I don't think every little bit has to match up or be perfect. Because if you look back at the original trilogy, those movies and those stories aren't perfect either. But they, like the Clone Wars Season 7, are absolutely great stories with important messages that we can all enjoy if we let ourselves. At least that's how I see it, Star Wars fans. As always, I'm Mike, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.